Well, good morning, everyone. Now, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are joining us in the world today. My name is Michelle, and I'm going to allow a couple of seconds just to let everyone to join. Just while we wait for a couple of more people to join, I know there has been a lot of interest in this particular talk, and I'm very excited to be here with you today, and I really appreciate you joining me. Just say hello in the comments. Let me know that you can hear me. If you're learning a language, tell me what language you're learning. Let me know where you're watching this presentation from. I would love to hear where you guys are from, your interests. Hello, Vanessa. Hello, Fiona. Hello, Susan, Elizabeth, Sarah, Aneta, Minju, Anna, Amsterdam, Melbourne, Australia. Yay, that's where I'm from. Essex, learning Italian, Malta. Oh, this is fantastic, guys. Sweden, Brussels, learning German, learning Swedish, Spanish, and Catalan. Oh, this is fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much. Now, we have a 45-minute slot today, so I want to give you as much value as possible within 30 minutes, and then I'm going to allow 15 minutes at the end for any questions. So what you can do is, if you have any questions, you can add it to the Q&A section that appears on Zoom. So it's two little speech bubbles. So if you go in there and you can type in a question, and that way that I'll see the questions at the end of the presentation, because we do only really have a short amount of time and there's lots that I want to share with you. So without further ado, I can see that we've got 120 people have joined. This is fantastic. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into my full screen mode, which takes over the whole screen, and I'll be up here in the bottom corner. That means I won't be able to follow the chat completely, but don't worry, we'll circle back to that in half an hour's time. So let me just share my screen with you now. Okay, I'm just going to hit into presentation mode. So you should be able to see, the first page of my presentation, and I'm going to just remind you again why you're here today. So this is a presentation about how to optimize your language learning with the 80-20 rule. Now, this is how I approach language learning myself, and this is what I'm going to be sharing with you today, so you can do it for your own language learning. So let's jump into it. So, oops, gone too far. Let me go back here. Okay, so my name is Michelle. I'm originally from Melbourne, Australia, but now I live in London. I used to live in Rome in Italy. So when I reached a certain level in Italian, I moved to Italy to improve my Italian. And I did my C1 exam in Italian, which was, one step away from the C2, which is now what I'm going to be working on. I've studied Italian, French, Afrikaans, and Norwegian. I run the language and travel site, The Intrepid Guide. Now, I offer to my audience, to my readers, to travelers, to heritage learners, so people that are learning the language of their parents, how to learn the language. So it could be if they want to learn it to a really advanced level, or they just want to learn it for travel purposes. So I teach both methods using my 80-20 method, which is what I'll be sharing with you today. So the idea for me, my passion comes from the fact that I've really seen the benefits of learning the local language when I go traveling. It's a lovely way to be respectful, but also to break the ice with the locals. They're really receptive when they see that you're trying to make an effort. You don't need to be perfect or fluent. You can make your your grammar mistakes, or the pronunciation is a bit off. They can see that you're making an effort and they help you through it. So that's really what I like to share with my audience, and to bring the excitement back into language learning. So throughout this presentation, you'll see lots of travel photography that I have taken, because I like to bring the two together. So if you're interested, you guys can follow me on Instagram. I have 2 accounts. One is general language learning, but also cultural and language fun facts, which is on Intrepid Guide. And then I have Intrepid Italian. So that's an account where I teach Italian. So if any of you guys are interested in learning Italian, then you can go and follow me there. At the end of this presentation, I do have a special surprise for you guys for attending today. And if at any point you would like to download the slides from today's presentation, there is a link at the bottom of this, of every slide in this presentation. So if you just type in bit.ly/Langshow 2021, that'll take you to a page, and then I'll send you the presentation notes. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Okay, so if there was a shortcut to language learning, using Pareto, which is an Italian name, would be it. The Pareto's 80-20 rule, this would be it. Now, what if I were to tell you that 80% of your success in learning is the result of about 20% of your effort? Now, or that 80% of the conversations you'll have in your target language, you'll only use about 20% of the vocabulary that you learn. Now, just think about that for a second. Now, this may sound, overly sensational to say such a thing, but just bear with me for a second. So this concept is called the Pareto Principle, also known as the 80-20 rule, and it influences lots of things in our life, including language learning. So we'll take a look at what the Pareto Principle is and how you can use it to learn your language faster and more effectively, so you'll progress faster. So in essence, the Pareto Principle states that roughly 80% of results come from 20% of the effort. Now, that is widely known as the 80-20 rule, as well as the law of the vital few. Now, this principle was coined by a management consultant called Joseph M. Duran, and it was named after the Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto. Now, he, in 1896, showed that approximately 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the population. Now, a similar distribution can be applied to many other areas too. So here are a few other Pareto Principle examples in the real world. So for example, 20% of articles on a website account for 80% of its visitors, or 80% of muscle gain is built by 20% of the repetitions that you do, so 20% of the movements. 20% of words in a language accounts for 80% of the usage. Now you can think about that in everyday terms for you. What words do you use in English or your native tongue that you use most of the time? Now this is how you learn a language, and this is what we're going to be exploring in further detail. Okay, so now, using the Pareto Principle in language learning. Now, what does this have to do with language learning? Well, the Pareto Principle can be observed and used for higher efficiency in the language learning sphere as well. Now, in fact, this is how I teach languages with my Intrepid language courses. I use my own interpretation of the 80-20 method. So the 80-20 rule in language learning means that most of your success is the result of only 20% of the effort you make. It also means that only 20% of the things you learn contributes to most, around 80% of your improvement. So it's important to focus on these things first before you get to the rest of the language and the rest of the vocabulary. So for instance, quite a few language learners make the following mistake. They try to learn as much as possible. They want to expand their vocabulary as wide as possible before they start speaking their target language. Now, don't get me wrong, it is good to have a large vocabulary and it is important to never stop learning. However, you should never wait until you learn everything before you start speaking. Now, the fact is only a small percentage of the vocabulary of a language, around 2,000 to 3,000 of the most frequently used words, cover about 80% of the conversations and texts. Now, this includes anything from chatting to friends, reading comic books, to lectures and academic articles. Now, it might seem like 2,000 words is a large number. However, considering that there can be hundreds of thousands of words in a language, for example, Spanish has around 150,000 words, it is not that much. So 2,000 versus 150,000 words is a big difference there. So it's more manageable than you think. Now, generally speaking, you can use the 80-20 rule to learn languages by concentrating on the most common words, but that's not all you can do. So let's go to the next slide. So we're going to have a look at 8 ways that you can apply the Pareto Principle to help you master your target language. You excited? give me a big thumbs up in the chat if you are. Let me know if you have any questions so far. You can pop them into the Q&A. Okay, so number 1, focus on the most frequent words and phrases. So as you just learned, a relatively small number of the most common words can get you quite far in practicing and using your target language. Now, this is the 80-20 rule in language learning. Now, of course, the most frequent words will differ from language to language, but there are a few key categories that you can single out. So using Italian as an example, here are a few key areas that you should focus on if you're just starting out in Italian. So pronouns, so saying things like I, you, he, she, us, you, plural, and they. So in Italian, it's io, tu, lui, lei, noi, voi, and loro. Then the next part is looking at basic verbs. So the most common and the most powerful verbs, the verbs that you can use every day to express all kinds of things that you will need to talk about on a daily basis. So in Italian, you have essere, to be, avere, to have, mangiare, to eat, andare, to go, volere, to want, and so on. So you get the idea that these are words that are quite versatile and the sorts of things that you'll need to say. So if you're traveling, that you want to buy something, you want to go somewhere, you want to eat something, or you want to have something. So you can see that these are the sorts of verbs that you'll need to use on a daily basis. Therefore, they make up the 20% of the language that you'll need to cover in yourself in 80% of the situations. So other things we can look at is basic grammar structure. So the word order, verb conjugations. So how do you put your, change the subject of the verb, and the use of articles. So if it's masculine, feminine, neutral, and so on. Basic time indicators is a good one. So when do you want to eat something, or where do you want to go? So you can say now, today, tomorrow, yesterday, later. So in Italian, you've got adesso, oggi, domani, ieri, più tardi. So these are good idea. It's a good idea to learn these time indicators just to give your phrases a specific point in time. Then we have things like basic nouns. So you can say things like, if you want to talk about, a car or a ticket or a house or a vacanza or a holiday, which I guess you're all really desperate to go on now that COVID is coming to an end in terms of lockdowns in most places. So car is macchina, biglietto for ticket. So you need to buy a ticket at a museum. Or casa, I want to go home. Or I want to go in vacanza, so on a holiday or vacation. So you can see here that this isn't an exhaustive list, but it gives you an idea of where to start with the language, that you really have to be methodical about what you want to focus on first. So you get the real bang for your buck in terms of where you spend your time when you're learning a language. Okay, so even learning just a couple of hundred of the right and most common words is enough to start practicing your speaking skills in basic conversation and to read simple texts. Now, don't worry about the advanced words or impressing people with your vocabulary. Don't be afraid of sounding simple or primitive. That's all in your head. People talk to you so they can communicate. And if they need to correct you, they will. And then that way you'll learn. So simple phrases can be meaningful and effective too. So don't forget that. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the next slide. It's already 12:30 here. Number 2. So start using your target language right now. So just memorizing the most common words and learning the basic grammar is, of course, not enough for learning a language properly. Now, after all, the use of knowing, what's the use of knowing 2,000 words if you can't use it or if you don't use it? So many learners make the mistake of waiting until they reach a certain level before they start speaking, but I implore you to not do that. You have to make the Pareto Principle work in language learning. You really need to start using the language as soon as possible. That way you learn from experience. Now, the earlier you start speaking the language, the easier it gets because you're learning on the spot, right? And you'll learn faster by doing it this way. So learn and you fail fast, right? So don't waste your time waiting. Don't wait until you learn X amount of words or you reach a certain level. Like, that's just a waste of time. The best way is to start using it straight away and get that muscle memory working between your mouth and your tongue and your brain, and get all those neurons firing. In the beginning, you'll be able to say just a few sentences, but the important thing is that you do say them frequently. You know, wish someone good morning, chat about the weather, ask what time it is. Now, you may hear some new words in reply, but you'll often understand them from the context, or at least get the general idea of what the person is saying, which is totally fine in the initial stages of learning. And you'll be able to say more in the future, but to get there, you need to start speaking now. Okay, so number 3, make the most of what you know. Now, the thing about learning the most common words in a language is that they are not only common, but they are also versatile. Now, there are many polysemantic words with several meanings among them, as well as words that can simply come in handy in many situations. So you can learn to make the most of the vocabulary you know, to be able to speak in a variety of situations. So here are a few strategies that you can use to do that. So number 1, pay close attention to the context, including the whole sentence or text, as well as non-verbal cues, such as hand gestures, like in Italian, as they surround the situation and the speaker's gestures. Now, this way you can often easily understand the meaning of a new or a polysemantic word. Number 2, now, aim for general understanding at first, especially. Now, after all, it is not quite about the individual words. When someone is telling you something, it's more important to understand the message or the main idea than each individual word. This comes a bit later. Now, number 3, work around the words you don't know. This is a really good tip. This is what really helps me with language learning. Now, there is a board game called Taboo where you need to explain words to the other players without using the words themselves. So, for instance, you have to explain what a cat or a chair is without saying the word cat or chair. Now, this game can be quite fun. It is also a good way to learn languages. It's a good strategy. Now, there may come a time, even at higher language levels that you reach, when you don't know or you don't remember a word. Now, don't worry too much about this. It's just the same as in your native language. You just use other words to explain the idea or what you mean. Now, you can do this in language learning too. So with some words, it can be quite easy. So if you're learning Italian, if you forget the word for small, which is piccolo, you can just say non grande, not big, to convey a similar message. Now, in other words, you'll need to be more creative. So you can think about another way of saying what you want to say. Now, this is all part of the fun of using the 80-20 rule. So number 4, simplify things. For example, if you haven't learned the past tense just yet, you can use the present tense, but with past tense or past, what am I trying to say? Time indicators. So let me repeat that again. The present tense with time markers. So say, for example, you want to say, I ate yesterday. You can say, mangio ieri. Now, your message will come across. Now, don't worry about it sounding incorrect, grammatically incorrect, or it sounds too simple, or you're making mistakes. Now, first of all, it is impossible to learn to speak correctly and beautifully, right in the beginning stages when you're still learning without making these mistakes, right? But language is all about communication, so don't forget that. And it takes a lot of confidence to be able to put yourself out there, and people can see that and they appreciate it. So, most people you talk to, be it native speakers or other learners, they'll be very accepting and they won't even notice this. They can just be in awe of the fact that you're able to speak more of their language than they can of yours in most cases. So yeah, that's just 4 tips of how you can get around the everyday stress of speaking a foreign language. Number 4, now don't try to learn everything. Just learn what you need for now. Now, first of all, it is simply impossible. There are too many words and phrases and too many possible usages. Words become obsolete and new words get coined all the time. And any given language can have many dialects, especially Italian, with their own unique words, pronunciation rules, and even different grammar. Now, you can't simply learn all of these variations, and if thinking about it will just be too overwhelming. Now, secondly, as we saw earlier, even if you manage to learn all the words in your target language or get very close to it, you won't ever use all of them, right? Can you think of all the situations where you'll need to say, really complicated words in your mother tongue? It'll come up every once in a while. There's lots of words that we don't even know. There's lots of words in English that I don't know. Now, take, for instance, archaic words that were used, a few centuries ago, or the slang that teenagers use these days, especially when they're playing computer games. Now, if you are not one of these teens or a student of history of ancient literature, both of these vocabulary groups or categories are useless to you. So why would you learn them? You just learn what you need to learn, right? Learn what you're going to use. Now, if you try to learn everything, at best you will end up knowing a bunch of random words and phrases that you won't be using. And what doesn't get used, remember this, gets forgotten quickly. Like the old adage, if you don't use it, you lose it. So this will negate your effort. Why spend all this time learning it if you're not going to use it? So don't chase the achievement of knowing all the words. Our time and effort are limited. We're all very busy. So make sure that you just focus on the Pareto Principle. Always come back to that. What is the 80-20? Where should I be investing my time? So we've got number 5 here. So pay attention to your experiences and your results. Now, we are all different people with individual habits and tastes, and we all learn differently too. There are visual and auditory learners, people who need more preparation, and those who are a bit more spontaneous. We've got social learners and solitary learners. So whether you know for sure what your learner type is or not, it is important to pay attention to your learning experiences. Don't go comparing yourself with others. Now, over time, you will see what works for you and what doesn't, and which techniques and exercises will bring you the most results, the best results. Now, this doesn't mean you have to eliminate everything that doesn't work 100% for you. For instance, if you are a visual learner, you'll still need to practice your listening skills. Otherwise, your listening skills will deteriorate and they'll suffer. However, by noticing what type of learning is more effective for you, you'll be able to concentrate on it and make faster progress as a result. Now, if you want to know what your learner type is, you can visit this URL that I have here. Now, it's case sensitive, so make sure you have a capital L and the capital T there. And you can take a short quiz and you can find out what your learner type is. And then you'll be able to choose language learning tools and methods and resources that work best for you. So I'll leave that up on the screen for a couple of seconds. While you guys, if you want to write that down. But like I said, if you want to download these slides, you've got that link at the bottom of the screen and you'll have access to all this information. Okay, number 6. Now, optimize your learning habits. Now, optimizing your learning habits will be different for different learners. So for each of you have your own style, your own method, but there are a couple of things that you should consider. So when do you learn best during the day? Think about this. Now, if your learning is more effective in the morning, but you only have free time in the evening, maybe take a look at your schedule and see if you can free up even just a little bit of time in your morning, just to get a little bit of language learning in, a couple of days a week. Now, it can be hard to do with a busy schedule, I understand that, but see if you can give it a try and see if you notice a difference. If you are a morning learner, 10 minutes of learning, self-study in the morning may actually be more effective than half an hour of learning in the evening when you're tired after a long day's work. Oh, Catherine, thank you much. Thank you for sharing that link. Number 2, now, are there any distractions when you learn? Now, I can't live without my phone. I always have it nearby. I've got it right here with me now. But do you have any work emails, social media notifications? You've got your children running around or pets that want attention. On the one hand, we need to pay attention to our work and our family and our friends. But on the other hand, you also need me time. You need some self-care. And language learning is a form of self-care. You're looking after yourself and your brain. Now, trying to learn a language at the same time won't be very successful because multitasking doesn't work. Even as a female, I like to do lots of things at one time. It's not, if you spread yourself too thin, you won't get the best results. So while not all distractions can be eliminated every time you sit down for a learning session, do your best to lower their number. Find a quiet room if you can, turn off your smartphone notifications, ask your family to give you some time alone. And again, 10 minutes of uninterrupted concentration on your learning will be more effective than half an hour or more of juggling multiple tasks. Now, there are just a couple of, these are just a couple of general examples, and your personal habits and possible ways of optimizing them may be different. I wish I could share more, very time sensitive today. But as with my previous tip, it is important to pay attention to what works and what doesn't. Find that 20% that brings you the results to make the most of it, right? Always come back to it. What is the 80-20 here? Where can I apply it? In terms of your time, in terms of the vocabulary, in terms of the grammar rules, you can do it. Okay, number 7, and then we've got one more after this, and then I'm going to show you something quite special, which I'm going to be sharing with you today. Okay, number 7, set measurable short-term goals. Now, learning a language without setting goals is like wandering aimlessly without a destination, right? Without clear goals, you roam around and you learn a bit here and a bit there. You may even make some progress, but truly mastering a language such as Italian is impossible without clear goals. I keep coming back to Italian because I have this new Italian Instagram account, and yeah, my heritage language is Italian, so that's why I keep using it as an example. Okay, so saying, for example, that you want to learn Italian, now just saying that is not a good goal. It's not clear enough. There is no clear understanding of what you need to do, and there is no timeline. It's very general. So goals will help you maintain motivation and learn efficiently. So to do this, think about 2 things. Actually more than 2, I've got 3 here. Short term, so set a goal for each month or even for each week. Such goals will act as milestones and move you from one to the next, right? You can see the progression there. And you can even have long-term goals as well. But without the short-term ones, they'll begin to seem very distant, and the temptation to put things off becomes more apparent. I don't worry about it. I've got a whole year to get fluent in Italian. But if you break it down into shorter, bite-sized and more achievable goals, you're more likely to get to your final long-term goal, right? The bigger goal. Now, make them realistic. Now, moving up a language level in a couple of months may be possible, but if you spend several hours a day learning, you can reach another level if you spend several hours a day learning and practicing a lot. But for most people with jobs and families, this is impossible. So this would be an unrealistic goal. So by setting a goal along the lines of, I want to get from, A2 to B1 in a month, you'll most likely set yourself up for failure, because you literally and physically don't have the time in your day to dedicate to learning if you have a full-time job, for example, or a family you need to look after. Now, there may be some amazing stories that you see online of fast learners out there, but it is essential that you take into account your time restrictions, your capabilities, and other responsibilities you have in your life. Again, don't compare yourself to others. That is definitely not a healthy place to be. I know it's really difficult, but please just remember what is going to be achievable for you. It's important that you maintain that positive attitude, right? And next, make it measurable. One of the reasons why saying, I want to learn X language is not a good goal is because it is too vague. You need to be specific. What level do you want to achieve? What do you want or need to be able to do in the language? Now, what topics do you want to master? Achieve a B1 level or to complete, X course is a better example, because you can actually see clearly if you have achieved the goal or not, and how well you can manage it, or how well you manage to do it, so you can do it again for the next level, for example. Now, such goals will keep you on track, and you can progress and move more efficiently because you have seen that the short-term goals or the long-term goals have actually worked, and you're more likely to replicate that again in the future. Okay, number 8, and I promise I'm going to be really quick because I really want to give you guys some question time. Number 8, be honest and be kind with yourself. Now, this is a little bit more positive thinking, but this is something that I still have to remind myself of. It can be a vicious cycle to compare yourself with others. So this is just a friendly reminder that I'm in it with you. I know what it's like to see how others are progressing, at a different rate to you. So don't deceive yourself into thinking that you're not doing enough, or that it could be that you're using a method that isn't quite right for you, but you blame yourself that it's not working. But also on the other side, don't try to convince yourself that learning is effective when you haven't put your 100% into it. You may need to abandon old habits and try out new ways of learning a language that may be a bit more challenging to push you past, a certain level, or if you've hit a plateau. But it is a good challenge, and it will shake you up a bit if you do change and switch methods a little bit. And it will help you stay motivated and make your learning more effective and more fun. Now, on the contrary, sticking to your old learning habits will only get you so far or hardly anywhere. Now, after all, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got, whether that be positive or negative. You need to decide that for yourself. So why waste time and effort on things that don't bring you the results that you want? But also don't be too hard on yourself either. Our emotions can play a great role in learning, except that we all have our good days where everything just clicks. You're like, yeah, I can, I know this language really well. And then some days it's just like, I can't even get my mouth and my brain to connect today. Studies show that when we enjoy the process, we usually learn much better too. So learn the high frequency of words and phrases, but don't forget to find fun in practicing them and using them. Watch movies, read books, attend language clubs, chat to people, browse the web, search topics that you're interested in. Bring the enjoyment into the language learning to help you make the most of the Pareto Principle. And so, yeah, there we have it. This is how I approach language learning with Pareto's 80-20 rule. If you guys do have any questions, please use the Q&A section, which I can't go through all the chat because there's so many messages, but if you can just put your questions in the Q&A area, that means that I'll be able to filter through all the questions that you guys have. So the last thing I wanted to say is, if you guys do want a kickstart in a language, I have created introductory, but also travel-focused language courses that use this 80-20 method. Now, these are very time-sensitive ones, so it'll only take you about 2 weeks to get a nice basis for the language. Now, I do have a course in French, Italian, of course, Norwegian, and Spanish. Now, these four language courses will help you peel back the layers of a destination and enrich your travel. So they're very much an introduction to the language with a focus on travel. So you'll be able to reach a basic conversational level in about 2 weeks. So again, of course, they're always 80-20 based, so you'll get the 20% of the vocabulary to survive in 80% of the situations you'll find yourself in when you go traveling. Now, this is a perfect way to get started in the language, just to get your feet wet a little bit and to get used to the idea of working with certain words and phrases up front. You have lifetime access to each of the courses, so you don't have to worry about when to start. You can enroll today and you can start tomorrow or today or in a week or in a month's time. You can do it ahead of a trip that you have coming up as well, so it's totally flexible. There's also a private support community, and there's also support from me, so you can reach out to me at any time with any questions that you may have. And there's also lots of bonuses. Now, I haven't listed all of them out here, but if you go to this link here, the intrepidguide.teachable.com, you'll be able to see all the information there. And as my gift to you for being here today, for buying a ticket to be here, I wanted to give you guys back something. So you can get 20% off any of these courses, and you just need to use the promo code LANGSHOW at the checkout. So click on enroll, it'll take you to the payment page. You type in LANGSHOW, it could be uppercase or lowercase, and you will get 20% off any and all of the courses there. So this will be available until the 16th of November. So it's about 72 hours from now, because I know not everyone will be watching this live. So I'll give you a little bit of time to join if you would like. So thank you all so much. Here is a bit more information about how you can get in contact with me if you would like to. You can email me, you can send me a message on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. You can follow me on or subscribe to my channel on YouTube. And yeah, I'm here for all your questions. I'm here to help. Please let me know if you enjoyed this presentation. It really means a lot that you were here, and I really hope that you got a lot of value out of it. If you did enjoy it, just please leave in the comments what you liked. It would be really helpful to me to know what you enjoyed. I'll go back to the previous page in case anyone wants those details again. So I'm just going to go through the chat here and see if there's any questions I missed that didn't end up in the Q&A section. Vanessa Lopez is learning Italian. Fantastic. Learning German in London. Well, where were you born into an Italian family? Oh, hello from an Italian living in Belgium. Oh, Lorenzo. Okay, so I was born in Melbourne, Australia, but my dad is Pugliese, so he's from the heel of the boot of Italy. So if you look at Italy as the shape of a boot, that's where my dad is from. So he immigrated to Australia when he was 4. So yeah, I'm the daughter of an Italian immigrant. Just checking any more questions. Thank you, Roberta. That's very nice of you to say so. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Okay, I'm going to jump into the questions here. Okay, Barbara, and if you do agree, did you actually help you speak fluently? I must have missed the start of that, Barbara. If you can submit your question again, please let me know. Sara, Sara, do you have a degree in languages? No, I do not. Now, this is something that I have learned as I've been learning my own languages. You know, I've gone through the school system where you go to language classes. I've done self-study. I've done language holidays. I've done online courses as well. And this is just a way that I have found that works best for me. And I wanted to share that with you guys. I think it's not something that we really hear about, the perspective of this student learning their own way and sharing that method with their audience. So that's why I'm here today, just to sort of share my approach. So you guys can see for yourselves if it works for you, if it's something that you can see similar, if not better results. Okay, Emiliana, what do you mean by the term heritage language? Okay, so is it a second language you spoke fluently? Okay, so heritage language, in my case, it's the language of my parent. So heritage language could be your grandparents or your great grandparents, or the language of your parents that you not necessarily learned as you grew up. It's something that you learned later on in life. Now, I didn't learn Italian until I started when I was 17 with just like a typical phrase book, but I didn't start learning it properly, as in a formal setting, until I was early 20s, when I had a car and I could drive around and take myself to language classes. So this is what I focus on with my Intrepid Italian account on Instagram. I help people that are in a similar position or were in a similar position to me, that, you know, have Italian family or parents, but they don't necessarily speak that language at home. So I help them understand it from the perspective of an adult learner, someone that had to learn it as an adult, because people sort of think that, oh, you know, I'm 60 years old and it's too late for me to learn a language, or I don't have the time. And I'm here to say that, you know, language doesn't play a huge part in it. It's the method, it's the teaching method, and it's a lot of the times it's the enthusiasm that you feed off, that you get from the teacher. So hopefully my enthusiasm comes across, and that this presentation will inspire you guys to go and have that, to feel empowered to go and learn any language that you want to learn. Barbara, my question. Sara, your inspiration is I've done a lot of self-study too. Great, that's fantastic. You speak French, Italian, and Spanish too, and sometimes I could use languages in my favor. Yeah, knowing lots of different languages can open up a lot of doors. You meet lots of wonderful people, make lots of friends. Okay, Teresa, I don't know where I'm pronouncing Italian or just English. Teresa Cook, tips for using Google Translate. I find it very useful when on the hoof. We're trying to get by in another country. You know what? Every language resource, every tool has its place. You know, if the quickest thing for you to use is Google Translate, then why not? You know, it's not always perfect. You might need to translate it back and forth into the different language, just to sort of see if the translation is right. But you know what? When I was in the Czech Republic, I had to use Google Translate too because I didn't know enough Czech to get by. I needed to get to the airport. I needed to know which train to catch. So there's no shame in using language tools that are easy, right? That are just easily accessible. So, you know, if you're using a dictionary at home, but you want to cross-check with a website called Word Reference, which I really love, and then you want to check again with Google Translate, you know, they're going to give you maybe different variations, but it's always good to cross-check your ideas, right? So we've got one thing here. Thanks for a positive energy. Can you suggest some online courses, books, and methods to start Spanish? Well, if you, Aneta, if you message me or send me an email, then I can give you a bit more detail. Oops, I've accidentally closed that. Sharing is paused. Why did that stop? Let me try that again. Sorry, I've just gone out of that screen. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a crisis here with the presentation. Let me just get out of that. I'm going to, I think I've stopped sharing screens now. Okay. Now I've lost that menu. Okay, yeah, sorry, Aneta, if you can just send me a message, then I can give you specific links to different resources, okay? Yeah, Miliana, yeah, your father is Italian, but you only learned it later on. Yep, I hear you, girl, I hear you. Just gonna keep an eye on the time here. We've got 3 minutes left. University Italian student, I'm currently learning Arabic. Do you have any tips on how to cope with the anxiety of learning a language completely different from your own? You know what, bite-sized chunks, take a step back and just focus on the 80-20, right? If, you know, like there are certain languages, you know, like Arabic especially, and Mandarin Chinese, where it is a steep learning curve. And sometimes you just need to focus on, say, the scripture for a year before you're able to speak. But it really depends on what your goals are. But, you know, I spoke to someone on my Instagram account recently who did 3 months of an intensive course in Italy. And, you know, I would say that Italian isn't too different from English. You know, there's a lot of cognates, a lot of loan words. But again, if, you know, take a look at the strategy that you're learning, right? If it's not working for you, maybe you need to supplement it with different ways of learning Arabic. There could be different courses that you can follow, different textbooks. You know, there could be someone on Instagram that you can find really inspiring that explains things to you in such a way that it clicks for you. So it could be a different factor of things. If you like, we can continue this conversation later on. Just send me an email and where are we? I'll share the screen again here so you can see my screen. Yeah, so you can see those details there again if you guys want to follow me or reach out to me in any way. And then again, if you want to join any of my courses, you'll have until the 16th of December. Just use the code LANGSHOW. So I've got like 1 minute and 15 seconds left before I have to actually close it down because the next talk will start. Let me see if we've got any more questions. Great. Oh, Roberta, here's a one for you. Okay, same question as Aneta, just for Italian. Can you suggest some online courses, books, methods to start Italian? Roberta, please do reach out to me. I do have language courses that I haven't mentioned here, but this is more advanced for Italian students that want to go from A1, A2, B1. So let me know what level you are at. I recommend you look me up on Instagram at Intrepid Italian, or send me an email and I can talk to you about those courses specifically. All right. Okay, guys. Well, I've got 30 seconds left. If there aren't any more questions, I can quickly answer. I want to thank you all again. It's been an amazing opportunity for me to connect with you guys and hear about things that you're struggling with language learning. So yeah, let me know if you enjoyed it. I really appreciate it again. Omari, sharing that link there for word reference. It's fantastic. Oh, look at all these thank yous. Thank you. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys very soon. I would really appreciate it if you did come and say hello to me on social media. But yeah, in the meantime, I hope you enjoy the rest of the language show, and you have until the 16th if you want to use that promo code LANGSHOW to get 20% off. Okay, guys, thanks again. And yeah, I'll speak to you all very soon, hopefully. Bye.